Welcome back to the Jack Colton Show. Tonight's guest is unlike any we've had before. He calls himself Marcus, and Marcus claims he's been alive for nearly 4 centuries. Now, you might think this is some act, a performance, but I want you to listen to the way he speaks, to the things he remembers, because if he's telling the truth, and I believe he is, then this may be the closest you'll ever come to hearing a vampire tell his story. Marcus, thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me, Jack. It has been some time since I've spoken about myself. You humans like to say, time heals all wounds, but when you've lived as long as I have, time only makes some wounds deeper.
Then let's start at the beginning. Who were you before all this?
Before I became this, I was a man, a grieving, angry, bitter man. I was born in 1638 in Provence, southern France. My family owned a vineyard. I remembered the air smelling of lavender in spring, the way the sun lit the fields gold at harvest. The land was humble, but it was ours. I was the second son, which in those times meant I was destined for very little. My older brother inherited the land. I inherited nothing but expectations.
What kind of man were you back then?
Restless, ambitious. I wanted more than the rows of vines my father left us. I wanted Paris. I wanted to see the world. But fate had other plans. When I was 25, I married a girl named Isabel. She was light itself, hair like wheat, eyes that could quiet any storm in my soul. For a brief time, I was happy.
What happened?
The plague happened. In 1665, it came through our village, quietly at first, a cough, a fever. Then, like fire in dry grass, it took Isabel in 3 days. I buried her myself.
So sorry.
Don't be. It was lifetimes ago. But that night, something in me died with her.
And that's when your life took a turn.
If you can call it life. The night I buried Isabel, I didn't go home. I couldn't bear the walls of our house without her voice inside. I walked for hours through the village, into the hills. It was late autumn. The air had that damp chill that seeps into your bones. I didn't care. There's a point when grief turns to recklessness. I wasn't afraid of thieves or wolves or God himself. If anything, I hoped for something to take me. That's when I saw him.
Lucien?
Yes. At first, I thought he was a priest. He wore a long, dark coat, and his hair was tied neatly back. He stood under a withered tree like he'd been waiting for me. "You've lost someone," he said. Not a question, a statement. I remember being startled by his voice. It was smooth, like warm wine on a winter night. I asked him who he was. He smiled, the kind of smile that makes you feel like a child in front of a teacher. He said, "A friend, if you'll let me be."
Didn't that feel strange?
Everything about him felt strange. But in grief, Jack, you cling to anyone who offers you an anchor, even if it's made of lead. We walked. He spoke little, but everything he said pierced me. About loss, about purpose, about how fleeting mortal life is. It felt like he'd known me my whole life. By the time we reached the edge of the woods, I felt calmer, like I'd been unburdened. That's when he asked the question that changed everything.
What did he ask?
He asked, "Do you want this pain to end?"
And what did you say?
I didn't hesitate. I said yes. I would have said yes to anything that night. Lucian nodded like he'd been expecting it. He led me deeper into the woods. I should have felt fear, but grief numbs you to everything. We stopped at an old stone shrine, half collapsed, overtaken by ivy. The moonlight pooled there like silver water. He told me to sit. I asked him what he meant by ending the pain. He crouched in front of me, tilting his head in that animal way he had, and said, "I can give you a different life, one without sickness, without time, without grief. But you'll owe me everything you are."
Did you understand what he was?
Not fully. I'd heard stories, demons, revenants, things that feed on men. But in that moment, none of it mattered. I wanted to stop feeling. Then he placed his hand on my chest, over my heart, cold as the grave. "Do I have your consent?" I whispered, "Yes." He leaned in. I thought he meant to comfort me, perhaps pray over me. Instead, I felt his teeth pierce my neck.
God.
It wasn't pain. Not really. It was like drowning in ecstasy and terror all at once. My body screamed to fight, but my mind surrendered. The world dimmed. My last breath tasted of blood and earth. Then darkness.
And when you woke up?
I wasn't in the shrine anymore. I was in the ground, buried shallow. And I wasn't breathing, but I wasn't dead.
You were buried alive? Not alive. Not dead. Something in between. I remember the crushing weight of the soil, damp earth pressing against my lips, my eyes. My hands clawed on instinct. I didn't even know what I was doing until my fingers broke through to the night air. I emerged like an animal, gasping for a breath I didn't need anymore. The world, Jack, it wasn't the same. The moon was blindingly bright. I could see every blade of grass, every crack in the stones, and I could hear everything. The wind in the trees sounded like a chorus. I could count every cricket, and far away, half a mile, maybe more, I heard the soft thrum of a heartbeat.
A person's?
Yes. And the moment I heard it, I wanted it. No, I needed it. It was unbearable, the hunger. It wasn't like the hunger of a man. It was like drowning, and knowing air is just out of reach. That's when I saw him, Lucian, standing there, calm, immaculate, like he'd been watching me suffocate and claw my way out just to prove I could. He offered me his hand. "Now," he said, "you're one of us."
Did he explain what you'd become?
He told me only what mattered. You're no longer prey. You're a predator. And predators must feed.
So he didn't give you a choice about what came next?
No, there's no easing into this existence. Lucian led me through the woods like a parent guiding a child, except I wasn't a child anymore. I was something ravenous, feral. I smelled it before I saw him, a shepherd, young, no more than 15. He was walking home from the village, humming to himself. I could hear the sheep bleating far behind him. Lucian stopped me. "Do you hear it?" he asked. I said, "His voice?" Lucian shook his head. "His heart." And I did. It wasn't just a sound. It was music. The rhythm of life, calling to me.
That's haunting.
It was intoxicating. My throat burned. My body moved before my mind did. One moment, I was watching the boy from the tree line. The next, I had him on the ground, my teeth buried in his neck. The blood, it was like fire and honey and sin. Every nerve lit up. I didn't care who he was. I didn't care what I was doing. And when I came back to myself, he was dead. His body was limp, his skin cold, and my hands were stained red. I wanted to vomit, I wanted to scream, but Lucian only smiled and said, "Now you're truly alive."
How do you live with that?
You don't. You bury it. You tell yourself they're just cattle, and every century you dig up that guilt and bury it deeper again.
So, Lucian taught you how to live like this?
If you can call it living. He told me the first rule, never be seen for what you are. Blend in, smile, speak softly. Men fear what they notice, they don't fear what looks like them. We traveled from village to village, pretending to be merchants, monks, whatever suited the night. Lucian was a master of disguise. He could walk into a tavern, share a drink with the locals, and none of them would know they'd welcomed a wolf among sheep.
And you learned to do the same?
Slowly. I was reckless at first, feeding too much, leaving evidence. Lucian punished me for it. A dead peasant draws pitchforks, he'd say. A missing one draws nothing. I learned to take only enough, never kill when it wasn't necessary, though necessary is a relative term when you're a monster.
Did you ever feed without killing?
Yes. You can drink without draining them, but it's hard. You taste that pulse, that warmth, and every instinct screams to take it all. Lucian also taught me the second rule, never make more of us. He said our kind grows only when it must. Too many predators draw attention.
So, it was just the two of you?
For nearly 50 years, he was my maker, my mentor, my prison. He showed me how to walk in the world without leaving footprints, how to silence guilt, how to become something no one could ever destroy. But he also reminded me every night that I belonged to him.
So, you stayed with him for half a century. What was that life like?
Lonely, liberating, terrifying, all at once. We wandered across Europe, the south of France, the mist-soaked streets of London, the quiet cathedrals of Rome. I saw the world in ways most men only dream of. I stood in the palaces of kings, walked among plague pits, heard confessions whispered in the dark to priests who would die before dawn. But none of it felt like living.
Why?
Because every night was a reminder. I wasn't a man anymore. I watched centuries of humanity burn through its own history. Wars, famines, revolutions, and I couldn't be part of any of it. Always on the outside, feeding on their blood and pretending to care. Lucian reveled in it. He'd say, "We are gods among insects. They live for crumbs, we live for centuries." But I couldn't believe that. I remembered what it felt like to be human. So you hated him. I hated that I needed him. Lucian had a way of making you forget you were his prisoner. He'd dress you in silks, teach you languages, give you the illusion of freedom. And then when you started to feel like your own person, he'd remind you with a single glance that you weren't.
Sounds like control.
It was. He wasn't just my maker. He was my captor. And eventually I realized the only way to be free was to kill him.
You decided to kill the one who made you. How long did it take to reach that point?
Years, decades. I don't think people realize how patient immortality makes you. When time stretches endlessly, plotting a murder for 10, 20 years feels like
sharpening a blade for one swing. Lucien never slept the way humans do, but there were nights when he'd grow complacent, drunk on blood and pleasure. That's when I studied him, his habits, his weaknesses.
What weaknesses?
The same as mine. Hunger, arrogance, overconfidence, but also the sun. We slept in deep, shielded crypts during the day. Lucien always sealed his chamber with heavy stones. But one summer, in Florence, I convinced him to stay in a merchant's villa, a place with wooden shutters instead of stone.
You were planning even then.
Every smile I gave him was a mask, every conversation a rehearsal. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed more than an opportunity. I needed to be sure I could live with what I'd done.
Did you ever doubt yourself?
Every moment. He was my captor, yes, but he was also my teacher, my only companion in a world I no longer belonged to. Killing him would mean freedom, but it would also mean being truly alone for the first time in my unnatural life.
So, what changed?
One night he brought me a girl, barely older than Isabel had been when she died, and he told me to kill her. When I refused, he laughed.
Still clinging to your humanity?
Then watch me take hers. That's when I knew. Lucien had to die.
How do you kill someone like him? Someone like you? You don't do it with brute force. You do it with calculation. I spent months planning it, learning the villa's layout, watching how the shutters swelled in the summer heat and didn't close quite as tightly as Lucien believed. I bought the servants with gold and fear, ensuring they'd be far from the house that morning. And I waited. The night before, Lucien fed heavily. He liked his indulgences, gorging until his limbs felt heavy. I played the loyal protégé, listened to his endless sermons about power and purpose, then helped him retire to his chamber. And then I sealed the door from the outside with iron rods, and I waited for dawn. You burned him? The first ray of sun crept through the gap in the shutters like God's own finger. I listened as he stirred, confused at first, then angry, then afraid. He screamed my name, pounded on the stone walls with all the fury of a trapped beast. He begged, threatened, wept. I stood there, outside his chamber, listening to the man who'd made me, who'd unmade me, turn to ash behind that door.
How did you feel?
Empty. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but all I felt was silence. It was the first time in 50 years that I was truly free, and I had never felt so lost.
So, you were finally free. What did you do with that freedom?
At first, I wondered. For the next 100 years, I drifted across Europe like a ghost. Paris during its golden age, salons full of poets and painters who thought their words could outlive death. I drank their blood and listened to their dreams. In Venice, I lived in a crumbling palazzo with courtesans who never asked why I only appeared at night. But everywhere I went, the same truth followed me. Freedom is not the same as belonging.
You were alone.
Completely. Humans grew old and died around me. Cities I'd fallen in love with crumbled or burned. I changed names like clothes, but it didn't matter. When you live forever, everything becomes temporary, except the hunger.
Did you ever consider ending it?
Many times. But that's the cruelest part of what we are, Jack. We're not so easily unmade. The sun can kill us, yes, but standing in its light takes more courage than most of us possess. And the longer you live, the more tightly you cling to even the misery of existence.
Did you ever meet others like you?
Occasionally. Some were philosophers, hiding in libraries, trying to understand the curse. Others were predators in the purest sense, killers who saw mortals only as cattle. But most were like me, wandering, searching for a reason to keep existing.
How do you even look at people after all that? After centuries? Differently. When you first become what I am, you see humans as prey. Their heartbeats are louder than their voices. You learn to watch for weakness. The drunkard alone in an alley, the beggar no one will miss. But with time, you start seeing them as something else. As what? Stories. Every mortal I fed on, I can still recall their last thoughts. Not words exactly, but impressions. Regret, love, hope. You begin to realize that life is unbearably fragile and unbearably beautiful. It's cruel, in a way. We take everything from them in a moment, yet they spend their entire existence clinging to every breath.
Do you envy them?
More than anything. They burn so brightly because they know they'll fade. Mortality makes their love desperate, their art urgent, their dreams impossible, and therefore worth chasing. Immortality robs you of that urgency. When you have forever, tomorrow loses its meaning.
That sounds empty.
It is. I've stood in cathedrals watching men beg their gods for forgiveness. I've walked through battlefields where boys died screaming for their mothers. I've seen humanity at its most depraved and its most divine. And I remain unchanged. That's the curse, Jack. The world moves on. You stay.
Did you ever try to love again after Isabel?
Many times. And every time it ended in ruin. I tried with mortals at first. Women who reminded me of her. Kind souls who saw only the mask I wore. I would court them, give them gifts, pretend I was just a man passing through their lives. But you can't hide what I am for long.
Did you tell them the truth?
Once. In Vienna, late in the 18th century. Her name was Katerina. She was fearless, a painter who mocked kings to their faces. I thought perhaps she could accept me. I told her everything. She laughed at first, thought it was some morbid joke. But when I showed her, when I revealed what I truly was, she wept. She begged me to turn her. Make me like you, she said.
And did you?
No.
Why not?
Because I wouldn't curse her with this. I left that night. Never saw her again. A year later, I learned she'd thrown herself into the Danube.
God.
That's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending to be part of their world. Their love was fleeting. Mine was poison.
And with others like you?
It's different. We understand each other's hunger. But we are predators, Jack. And predators don't trust their own kind. Every bond feels like a fragile truce.
Marcus, you've lived almost 4 centuries. Be honest with me, what's the worst thing you've done?
There are many. Too many. There was a winter in 1721 outside Warsaw. Food was scarce, the roads were frozen over, and every village was full of starving, dying people. And I was weak from hunger. I found a carriage trapped in the snow. Inside, a family. A father, his wife, 2 small children. They were alive. Barely.
And you?
I told myself I'd take only what I needed. Just enough to survive. But hunger turns you into something worse than a beast. When it was over, the snow was red.
The father's last thoughts were of his children, praying someone would save them. They were already dead. I burned the carriage, buried what was left under the snow. That's the thing about living forever, Jack. You can bury the bodies. You can change your name, your face, your country, but you can't bury what you've done. It follows you.
Do you ever feel remorse?
Every night. But remorse doesn't bring them back. It doesn't make me less of a monster. Sometimes I feed on those who deserve it. Killers, slavers, men who prey on the weak. I tell myself it's justice, but deep down I know it's just an excuse to keep feeding.
So, do you hate yourself?
I hate what I am, but I'm too much of a coward to end it.
And now, in this century, how do you exist?
Carefully. The world has changed more in the last 100 years than it did in the 3 before it. Cities are brighter, louder. People move faster. Technology makes hiding harder and easier at the same time.
How so?
Surveillance cameras are everywhere, but so are crowds. In a city of millions, a shadow like me can disappear in plain sight. I keep several identities: documents, bank accounts, apartments across Europe and the Americas. I buy properties under false names. I live like a ghost, wearing many masks.
And feeding?
It's evolved. In Lucian's time, we preyed on peasants who would never be missed. Now, it's more complex. Hospitals, nightclubs. I've even fed in disaster zones, where death is expected and my presence unnoticed. I've learned to take just enough to keep them alive when I can.
That almost sounds humane.
Humane. It's not kindness, Jack. It's survival. Leave too many bodies behind, and people start asking questions.
So you live among us, walk our streets, sit in cafes, and no one knows?
I've sat across from people on trains who smelled of fear and blood. I've watched lovers argue in cafes and thought of Isabel. I've listened to the heartbeat of the man interviewing me, steady but curious. I live in your world, but I am not part of it.
Then why agree to this? To talk to me? To share this with anyone?
Because I'm tired, Jack. You spend centuries in the dark and you start to crave being seen, even if just by one person who won't scream and run.
So this is confession?
In a way, I've carried this silence for lifetimes. Every face I've taken blood from, every name I've borrowed, every lie I've told, it sits on my chest like a stone. And maybe, if I say it out loud, I can feel a little lighter.
Do you want forgiveness?
Forgiveness is for the living. I want understanding.
And do you think people could ever understand you?
No, not really. But perhaps they could pity me.
Do you have a purpose now? Something that drives you?
Purpose. I once believed my purpose was to conquer my hunger. Then I thought it was to punish those who deserved it. But now, I think my purpose is simpler. To exist, to watch, to remember. I have become a witness to centuries of humanity. Your triumphs, your failures, your fleeting loves. Perhaps that's why I haven't walked into the sun yet.
Do you ever think about ending it, truly?
Every night. I've stood on rooftops at dawn, watching the first light crawl across the horizon. I've thought about what it would feel like to just stay there. Let the sun strip me down to nothing but ash.
And why don't you?
Because fear is stronger than guilt. Even for us. We tell ourselves we're immortal, but that's a lie. We can die. It just takes more courage than I've ever had.
Do you think about what comes after?
Once. Not anymore. When you outlive generations of priests, prophets, and philosophers, you start to realize no one knows. Perhaps there's nothing. Perhaps there's punishment. Perhaps I'll see Isabel again. But if I end myself, I'll find out. And I'm not ready for that truth.
So, you keep going.
I keep going. Out of habit. Out of cowardice. Out of hope, maybe.
Hope for what?
For a night when I don't feel like a monster. For a moment when I can look at my reflection, if I had one, and not feel disgust. Perhaps hope for someone to tell my story and believe it.
That's why you came here.
Perhaps.
You've heard the stories, the myths, garlic, crosses, holy water. How much of it is real?
Most of it is theater. Stories humans tell to make sense of us, or to feel like they can control us. Garlic, a nuisance, nothing more. Crosses, they only have power if you believe they do. I've walked through cathedrals without bursting into flame.
And holy water?
Water is water. What burns is faith. If a priest truly believes, then perhaps it can sting, but not for the reasons they think.
And sunlight.
That one is true. The sun strips us bare, burns us until there's nothing left but dust. It's not romantic, it's agony.
Do you fear it?
Every day. The sun is the only thing that can erase me completely.
But isn't that tempting?
Tempting, yes, but also final. And for all my sins, Jack, I am still a coward who clings to existence.
What about the other side of the myths? Strength, speed? Are you as powerful as the legends say?
We are predators, faster, stronger than any mortal. We heal quickly, but we are not gods. You can destroy us, but it takes intent, and most mortals don't have the courage to try.
So people fear you because they should.
No. They fear us because they can't decide whether we're monsters or a dark reflection of themselves.
You've watched humanity for nearly 4 centuries. How do you see people now?
Different, and yet exactly the same. When I was turned, men fought wars over land, over God, over pride. They still do. They just dress it in cleaner words now. Progress, justice, freedom. But there's something new.
What's that?
Noise. You live in an age of constant distraction. Screens, lights, voices, 1,000 ways to drown out silence. Humans fear silence now more than death. Why does that bother you? Because silence is where the truth lives. It's where you feel the weight of what you are. Mortals used to face that truth in churches, in empty fields under the stars. Now they hide from it behind glowing rectangles.
Do you think people are worse now?
Not worse. Just numb. You chase immortality in smaller ways, digital echoes of yourselves, legacies built on followers and clicks. You crave to be remembered, yet squander the brief time you have. It's ironic. I would give anything to feel the urgency you take for granted. That's a heavy perspective. When you live forever, Jack, you stop envying the strong. You start envying the fleeting. The fleeting, yes. To burn brightly, even briefly, that is a gift you cannot understand until you've lived too long in the dark.
You've seen history firsthand. What moments stayed with you the most?
Too many, but some haunt me. I walked the streets of Paris during the Revolution, the smell of blood and bread in the air, mobs dragging nobles to the guillotine. I fed on a soldier who begged me to take him before the blade did. His fear tasted like rust and desperation. I was in London during the Blitz, watching as bombs reduced entire streets to rubble. I hid in underground tunnels, surrounded by mortals who sang to keep their courage. I hadn't heard songs that pure since my human days. And I stood in New York on September 11th.
You were there?
Yes. I watched those towers fall, and for the first time in centuries, I felt small again, helpless. I fed that night, not because I needed to, but because their fear was overwhelming. It clung to me like smoke.
That's a horrifying way to experience the world.
It is. But history isn't just tragedy. I've heard Beethoven play by candlelight in a room of 20 people. I've watched a painter sell a canvas for pennies, knowing it would one day hang in a museum. I've seen a dying mother give her last piece of bread to her child.
So there's beauty too.
Always. Even in the darkest nights.
And that's what keeps you going?
Perhaps. It's easier to keep living when you know humanity, for all its horrors, can still surprise you with grace.
Do you ever worry someone will expose you? That people will find out what you are? Always. You live in an age where secrets don't stay buried. Cameras, DNA, satellites, humans are better hunters than they realize. And some of them already know. What do you mean? There are organizations, small, quiet, well-funded, that have known about my kind for centuries. Inquisition didn't end with burning stakes, Jack. It evolved.
You mean there are people hunting you?
Not just people. Institutions. Some study us, hoping to use us for medicine, for power, for weapons. Others want to exterminate us, convinced it's righteous.
Have they ever found you?
Once. It was Berlin, 1984. I'd grown careless. They captured me, bound me in silver, buried me in concrete. I spent 5 years in darkness, unmoving, unfeeling, listening to the world hum above me, until one night, the ground broke, and I wasn't alone anymore.
Someone freed you?
Another of my kind, older than Lucian, wiser. He told me, you survived because you were meant to. And you just went back into hiding? It's what I do best, survive. But the more humans learn, the harder it gets. One day, I won't be able to disappear. And then either they will burn me, or I will burn myself first.
Are there others like you now, in this time?
Yes. We are fewer than you think, but we are everywhere. Scattered across continents, hidden among the living. Most of us don't speak, don't gather.
Why not? Wouldn't it be safer together?
It would, but it would also be dangerous. We're predators, Jack. Put too many in one place, and instincts take over. Hunger becomes competition. Power becomes war. In the 19th century, I lived briefly with others. A family, they called it. 6 of us in a chateau in Belgium. We shared blood,
told stories, played music together beneath candlelight. For a time it felt like belonging.
What happened?
One night, a traveler stumbled onto the estate. Young, wounded. We brought him in. And two of us couldn't resist. They fought over him. One killed the other. Then we burned the house and scattered. That's when I learned we're not meant to be a family.
So you choose solitude.
It's not a choice. It's survival. I stay away. I don't seek others. I don't turn anyone. The fewer of us there are, the longer we can stay hidden.
Have you ever been tempted to turn someone?
Twice. Both times I walked away. If I cursed someone else with this, it would mean believing there's still something worth becoming, and I don't believe that anymore.
Marcus, after all these years, do you still feel fear more than ever?
Of what?
Some fears never leave. There was a night in the Carpathians, 1763. I'd been hiding in an abandoned monastery, old stone, holy ground long forgotten. I thought I was safe. Then I woke to the smell of smoke. Hunters, dozens of them. They had surrounded the monastery, carrying torches, silver-tipped pikes, ropes soaked in oil. I could hear their prayers, low, angry chants.
Did they know what you were?
They knew enough. I stayed still, listening as they climbed the steps, barricaded the exits, poured oil at the doors. And then, fire. The monastery burned around me, stone cracking from the heat, beams collapsing. The screams of men outside as smoke choked them too. I hid in the crypt, beneath a sarcophagus. Hours passed. The heat above felt like the sun itself. I thought I'd die there, burned or buried alive.
How did you get out?
I didn't. At dawn, when they thought I'd perished, they left. I clawed through rubble, my skin charred, my body barely clinging to this unholy existence. And that night, I fed like an animal.
On them?
On every one of them I could find.
You're saying you fear men more than death?
Always. Death is quiet. Men are not.
You make it sound like humans frighten you more than anything else.
They do.
But you're the predator. You're the one people fear.
That's the illusion. Humans fear what they don't understand, but I fear what I do understand. Your capacity for cruelty, Jack. I've watched empires rise and fall, and in every age, I've seen men commit horrors far worse than anything my kind has done.
Like what?
I was in Saint Domingue during the slave revolts. I saw men whip children until their skin fell away. I saw the same children rise up years later and burn their oppressors alive. Both acts done in the name of justice. I walked through trenches in 1916, where boys drowned in mud, gas eating their lungs, clawing at the sky for air. They weren't monsters. They were just following orders.
So you think people are worse than you?
I think people are more dangerous than me. I kill to survive. You kill for flags, for pride, for the promise of heaven.
That's a bleak way of seeing humanity.
No, it's honest. But I've also seen your kindness. The way strangers hold each other after disasters. The way mothers starve themselves to feed their children. The way some of you forgive when revenge would be easier. Humans are contradictions. That's what terrifies me. That's what fascinates me. Do you respect us? More than you'd believe.
You've told me about the horrors of centuries past, but what about now? What's the worst thing you've done in recent years?
2 years ago, I was living in Madrid, quietly. a rented flat above a bookstore. I hadn't killed in months. I had been feeding carefully, sparingly. Then the hunger came back, the kind that clouds everything. I met her in a bar, Elena, a university student. She thought I was a man in his 40s, wealthy, cultured. She liked that I listened. She didn't know I was listening to her blood more than her words.
You fed on her.
I planned to take only a little, just enough to silence the hunger. But when I bit her... It's difficult to describe, Jack. When you drink from someone so alive, so full of dreams, you taste every hope they've ever had. And it's intoxicating. I lost control.
You killed her.
Yes. I held her as the life left her body. Her last thought wasn't fear. It was disappointment. She thought she'd misjudged me. I burned the flat, left Madrid that night.
And that still haunts you.
Every time I close my eyes.
So you came here to tell your story, to confess?
To make someone remember her name, so that she wasn't just another body in the dark.
Marcus, after everything you've told me, the pain, the guilt, why keep going? Why live like this?
Because even monsters want meaning.
Do you think you will ever find it?
I don't know. There are nights when I convince myself I live to witness humanity, to see how your world changes, to keep its stories when no one else can. Maybe that's my penance, to remember. And then there are nights when I feed and leave a body behind, and I think, no, I keep going because I'm too afraid to stop. Afraid of death? Afraid of what waits after. Do you know what immortality really does to you, Jack? It strips away the illusions. Heaven, hell, redemption, they all start to feel like stories you tell yourselves so you can sleep at night. But what if there is nothing? What if all I've done, all I've endured, means nothing?
So you live in limbo.
Exactly. Half in your world, half outside it. Never truly alive, never truly dead.
And yet, you here, talking to me.
Because maybe part of me still hopes that someone will hear this and understand that I'm not just a monster, that I once was a man who loved, who lost, who made terrible choices trying to survive. Maybe that's enough to keep going another night.
If you could tell people one thing about life, death, everything you've seen, what would it be?
Live like you're running out of time.
That sounds almost cliché, coming from someone who has all the time in the world.
That's why I can say it. Mortality is a gift, Jack. You don't see it because you're blinded by the fear of losing it. But the end, knowing it's coming, that's what makes your moments burn so bright.
You envy that.
More than you'll ever know. You think immortality frees you, but it chains you to an endless night where nothing matters because nothing ends. You never get closure, never get peace.
So what should people do?
Love deeply. Forgive quickly. Create things that outlive you, not because they'll make you immortal, but because they'll give your brief existence weight. And when you sit in silence, don't run from it. That silence will tell you who you really are.
That's surprisingly hopeful.
It's the only wisdom I've earned. Don't waste the life I would give anything to have back.
Is there anything at all, that could give you peace?
I used to think it would be revenge. Killing Lucien gave me no peace. Then I thought it would be love, but every attempt at that ended in tragedy. Now, I think peace might come from forgiveness. Forgiveness from who? Myself? But that's the hardest thing.
You can forgive others. You can even be forgiven by them. But looking at yourself, centuries of blood on your hands, and saying, "I forgive you," that feels impossible.
Do you ever dream of ending it? A true end?
Every night, I dream of standing in the dawn, feeling the warmth of the sun for one last moment before it burns me away.
And why don't you do it?
Because there's still a part of me, a boy from Provence who once loved the smell of vineyards in spring, who wonders if tomorrow will be the night I feel human again.
That hope keeps you here.
It does. Fragile, foolish hope, but hope nonetheless.
Marcus, do you regret becoming what you are?
Regret? Jack, regret is too small a word for what I carry. If I could go back to that night in the woods, I would let myself die beside my wife's grave.
You've mentioned Isabel more than once tonight. Do you still think of her?
Every day. It's strange, Jack. Centuries pass, memories fade, even faces blur. But hers never did. I can still see the way she smiled when she was trying not to laugh, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous.
Do you see her in the people you feed on?
Always. Sometimes I feed on strangers who remind me of her just so I can feel that memory again. It's cruel. It's twisted. But when you've been in the dark this long, you cling to anything that makes you feel alive.
If you could speak to her now, what would you say?
I'd tell her, I'm sorry. Sorry for surviving when she didn't. Sorry for becoming this thing. Sorry for every life I've taken because I was too weak to let go of my own. And I'd tell her that in every century, in every city, in every face I've seen, I've looked for her.
Do you think she'd forgive you?
I don't know. I hope not.
Why?
Because I don't deserve it.
If this is the only time you ever tell your story, what do you want people to remember about you?
That's, I was human once. Not a monster, not a myth. Just a man who loved his wife, who mourned her, who made one terrible choice that changed everything.
Do you fear being forgotten more than I fear the sun?
Immortality isn't about living forever, Jack. It's about carrying the weight of every moment, every face, every scream. Knowing one day they'll vanish into nothing, and you'll still be here, alone.
So telling me all of this, is your way of leaving something behind, perhaps.
You asked me why I came here. Maybe it's because I want someone, anyone, to know that behind the hunger, behind the centuries of blood, there was still a man trying to make sense of it all.
And what do you want that man to be remembered for?
For trying, even when it wasn't enough.
Marcus, I don't know what to say.
Then say nothing. Sometimes silence says more than words.
Before we finish, do you have any last words? Anything for those listening?
Yes. To the mortals who hear this, cherish your fleeting lives. Feel everything, even pain, even sorrow, because those feelings are proof that you're alive. Don't waste your days trying to be remembered for centuries. Be remembered by the ones who matter now. Love, even if it hurts. Forgive, even if it feels impossible. And never take the sun for granted.
That's powerful.
It's truth, and from someone like me, truth is all I can give.
Marcus, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for listening, Jack.
Perhaps now, at least one person in this endless night will remember who I was.
And for everyone listening, this has been The Jack Colton Show. I don't know if you believe what you've heard tonight, but I know I'll never forget it. Until next time, stay curious.